Hey, welcome everyone. It's Tuesday. It's time for Shooting the Shiznit. That's right. This is episode 25, and we're live in living color from STS Studios in St. Louis, Missouri. Guys, I just noticed that this show that you're going to listen to goes about 40 minutes. We tried our best to do a 30-minute show. This one will go right at 40 minutes. So the intro here today is going to be quick and simple. If you need anything, go to www.stspod.club. Follow me at comicbookmarkbt. That's at comicbookmarkbt. Or you can also go to the official group. That's right, the official FB, that's Facebook group, Cool Kids Wrestling and MMA Talk. You have to do a search and we'll let you in. It's a super secret group. Coming Thursday, if all goes well and we record Wednesday night, it's going to be the Wrestling Podcast Game Show. Right, I'm keeping super secret, kayfabing everyone until it's released. But get ready on your Shooting the Shiznit feed. You're going to have a special edition. I've been working with a couple of people with this, and it should be really lots of fun. It's going to be a new bi-weekly show, so if everything works out, you guys will get 8 to 9 30-minute episodes of Shooting the Shiznit every week. As always, I want to thank everyone for listening. We have a lot of downloads last week. It continues to be just surprising to me. Thank you for listening. No more BS. We'll get right to the show. Hey, everyone. I want to welcome Austin Lane. Austin Lane's favorite wrestler of all time is, well, himself.
Coach
but
BT,
no.
Yeah. No, Coach BT's my favorite. I guess I can stop kissing up.
Yeah, there you go. Start kissing up as soon as I get on. Austin, now we've known each other, and I'm horrible with dates, but he, and I want to say this to people. Austin has been a friend of mine for a while, and he can probably tell me how long it's been. But he also is one of very few people. We try to come up with the list before we came on air, but he's one of very few people that's actually seen the BT Express wrestle one time, and he's seen me as Coach BT wrestle one time. So in just real quick words, Austin, how do you feel about those matches? I mean, 5-star, 4-star, what were they? How good were those matches?
Well, it's about telling a story, and the way you always told a story in the ring. The best part of those matches were, it was the last. It was the very end of it. Usually the bell was 5-star.
And I can remember both. I want to tell everyone this. I was absolutely horrible in the ring, and I knew it. I was not one of those guys that spent 20 years wrestling that thought they were really good, and that's the reason I didn't wrestle. But Austin said the same thing to me both times I come backstage. And it was in between a big period of time, but I came backstage and I was like, well, what'd you think? He goes, well, that wasn't bad for an old guy. And that's all he said. He didn't say anything bad. I was like, wait, he said that same thing X amount of years ago. Well, so how long has it been? That time it was in, where was it, Dixie, Arkansas? Is that where it was? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, one was in Dixie, Arkansas. And I've known you for now, it's 2017. It's going to be right at 18 and a half years now.
Oh, God, we're getting old. Yes, very much so. And you were responsible, and you can tell the story real quick, but you were responsible for the first time I ever was on television. And as silly as this sounds, it was kind of always a dream of yours to be on TV if you're wrestling, especially in this area if you're into wrestling. And when I came back that night and we did all those tapings, I got in the car with my ex-wife and said, really, I just, got one thing off my bucket list right now. If I die right now in the next few days, which I'm glad I didn't, but I'll be happy. So it was, all in all, it was a crappy TV show, but we were on television in Jonesboro, Arkansas.
Yeah, it was. The company itself too had so much talent on it. It was just, back then, especially back then, where a lot of the companies were just getting TV, especially I think it was like a 4 a.m. or 2 a.m. time slot, late night on Saturday nights. It really didn't have all that production quality that there is now. And I remembered exactly because we were in Jonesboro, Arkansas, and you were managing total chaos. It was Cade and Viper, CJ, Christian Jacobs. And
right.
y'all went out and done a dark match before the taping started. We started doing the taping, and I remember the guys that me and Kenny Hansen were supposed to wrestle didn't show up. So I went up to Jimmy Hansen, who was booking the show at the time. Him and Mike Austin were booking it. And I told him, I was like, hey, won't you give me these guys? And I remember Mike Austin telling me, he's like, all right, I'll give those guys to you. Y'all go out there and you do the TV match. He gave us time, finished all that other stuff. But he told me, he's like, you just make sure you wrap that coach's whistle right around his neck, because that thing is getting annoying.
I didn't know any better. I didn't know any better back then. Yeah, that was god awful. I've watched tapes where I got on myself. I got on my nerves myself, and that was really. There's things I learned after that, in the sense that you could whistle. I could have blew the whistle one time instead of the whole match, or I could have.
Yeah, I remember that. I always thought, man, do I have a concussion or something? Because I heard that whistling all match long. I still remember the second TV taping you guys done with us. We were in Harrisburg, Arkansas, and I remember me and CJ did a spot. We set up. There's a balcony there in Harrisburg, and I remember we set up tables. We set up 2 tables stacked up on top of each other, and this was kind of like a ECW style television show. I mean, everything was hardcore.
Yeah.
So I remember setting up the tables, setting Christian Jacobs on it, CJ. And I remember jumping off the balcony, going through both tables, and I remember me and CJ laying there, and I asked him, like, "Hey man, you okay?" Yeah, I'm fine. Next thing, here comes Coach BT, goes right over to us, looks at both of us. Now, Coach BT, you were managing Viper, CJ,
right,
against us. But I remember you looking at us and saying, you didn't tell me you were going to do that, and hauled off and punched both of us.
I was
CJ, the
so
guy you were
mad.
managing.
I was so mad at both of you guys. I couldn't believe. If you watch the TV version, you don't see the punching. But if you watch the Raw version, you can see me. I just haul off. I just knocked the shit out of both of y'all. I was like, what? I was so pissed. And then after it was all done, I was like, man, why did I just hit those guys? But yeah, it came out of nowhere. I was pissed that y'all set up that spot. And down the line, when I was booking, I had spots that I had people wanting to do some of the crazy stuff, because we were watching ECW, and I had some guy one night, he wanted to go through glass that was X amount of thick, and he was going to do nothing but hurt himself. I had to actually hide the glass. Just crazy stuff is when you're, and it's just Memphis area stuff. If you're listening to this podcast in New Zealand, it was just the local stuff. It was a lot of fun, and I think all of us are pretty much still friends from there. From that area, we contact each other, and every time we see each other, it's just like, oh, we was there with that little promotion. That do you remember the night that someone jumped off the cage and I ran? So other than that, that's the highlights of my career there. So.
Actually, that one was it wasn't even the cage spot. It was I jumped off the balcony there in Jonesboro, and it was like 40 feet in the air. And I remember looking down.
I thought it was a cage. Yeah.
I dove off of it, and I see, and there's Coach BT and 3 other guys, CJ and Kenny Hansen and Cade was there. And I looked down and I jumped. As soon as I jump, I see Coach BT take off and running.
I said, I'm not catching that motherfucker. No. You're too high. I'm not going to hurt myself. So, yeah. All right, let's quit bullshitting. Well, even though this is Shooting the Shiznit, I brought you on for a reason, and you, for a long time before even it was cool to do this, but you were always that guy that the promoters would pick to wrestle the stars. So today, instead of dancing with the stars, we're going to have wrestling with the stars. And what we're going to do is in like a rapid fire format, pretty much like we do Cool Kids Countdown. We're going to have 15 guys. We're going to give you X amount of time to talk about each guy. And then we're going to end it. This is not a list, guys, he's not going to say number 15 that I say is the 15th best, or the first one is the best. That's not what we're doing. We're just going to I'm just going to say the name, and we both shared the list here. I'm going to say the name, and I'm giving him X amount of time to talk about him. Here's the reason why is that not only I looked at the list when he sent it to me, and some of the guys I've heard stories about and how he thought about wrestling them, but others I haven't even knowing you, I didn't know you wrestled some of these guys, and that's going to be cool. It's cool for me, and I think it'll be cool for everyone that listens because they'll be able to hear kind of like behind the scenes of some of these guys. We're going to start first with two local guys who are were some of the top 10 talent in this area. When I used to do the Wrestling Right, you also was one probably had more 5-star matches than anyone during that history. But we're going to start with them two first, but we'll go with the first one. Second one, I'll just keep going down. So here we go. The first guy on the list, Derrick King.
Yeah, Derrick, I remember, like, it was months before I started training. I remember Derrick King and Braden Baxter coming through Indian Mall, and they were I ran them down and got an autograph from them, and who knew that years later that me and Derrick King would share the ring so many times. I had so many matches a year. Derrick is one of the best. I don't understand how he didn't get, why he didn't make a ton of money in the business. He's one of the best storytellers that I've ever been in the ring with. I mean, the guy is just crisp. He doesn't have a bad match. He can go out there and he can take a broomstick and pretty much have a 5-star match with him. I mean, Derrick King is just unbelievable. The guy, I remember wrestling in some little town, and he was double shotting that night, and Aaron Poston had brought him in, and me and him wrestled each other, and I remember getting called back out to the ring 4 different times, and each time I get out there, the referee said, hey, do this to Derrick and pin him again. Hey, do this to Derrick and pin him again. And then the last time, the referee pinned him, and I did the count, and Derrick's always – he is professionalism, to a T. I mean, when you look up professionalism and professional wrestling, Derrick King's name would be right next to that word. I mean, he is just unbelievable. I mean, deserves everything that he's ever gotten in wrestling business and so much more. He really has.
I can't agree more. And then also right beside him, his name would be Vodka also. But other than that, I told you we weren't going. I told you we weren't going to kayfabe. So there we go. So the next one on the list is Dustin Starr, our buddy Dustin Starr, who's been on this podcast once.
Oh yeah, Dustin 5-star. He's a beast. That's what he is. I remember Dustin. I knew Dustin back when he was a lifeguard. When he was a lifeguard, Dustin Starr. I remember when him and Maria first started dating, and first time I met Maria. And Dustin is. I mean, he's one guy that I don't get to see him and talk to him a whole lot, but he has always been so nice to me, and he gets a bad rap from people a lot of times, and it's not deserving because Dustin is gold inside a ring. And the way he is dedicated and transformed his body from the way he was before to now, I mean, it's awe-inspiring, really, because, Dustin I've watched him and seen him grow up in the business for so long, and the guy, he really is. I remember some of my favorite matches have been against Dustin. Me and him wrestled at the New Experience Wrestling iPay-per-view. I believe it was anniversary show, the third one or second one or something like that. Went out there and tore the house down. Every time, Dustin and I wouldn't even have to call spots. I mean, we just go out there and tear the house down every time. Dustin is another one of those guys that he just doesn't get enough recognition. If you don't know who Dustin Starr is, Google him, YouTube him. The guy is awesome, and he really, really is.
I agree. I said a lot of good things about him when he was on here. Always been a favorite of mine and been a friend for years. So now we're going to get into the stars. These are the big names. Not that Derrick and Dustin are the big names, but these are the big names. And the first guy on the big names list, you were a fan of his long before mine, and I didn't become a fan of his until he went to New Japan. He's in WWE now. Tell us about wrestling. He was a star at the time, wrestling AJ Styles.
Yeah, when the AJ, when I actually got booked against AJ, it was for Down South Championship Wrestling, and I remember at the time when we booked him, he was the NWA World Heavyweight Champion, and we were actually going to do like a title match for him, and then he ended up losing that title and gaining the X Division title right beforehand. So. And then I got to wrestle AJ. AJ is, nice as can be. The guy really it was at a time when he still wasn't. Neither one of us were really, like storytellers in the ring. All of us were going out there and putting together spots and that kind of deal, and we had a great match. We really did, and I really hate the fact that we could have had an even better match if we'd have wrestled each other, now or 5 years ago or 10 years ago even. We would have had a so much better match because we were both storytellers by now. I mean, I'm proud of everything that he's done because, I mean, the guy I talked to him several times after I wrestled him, and he's nice as can be. Humble, he doesn't act like he doesn't big time anyone. Never has seen that. Jerry Lynn, who taught me everything I know in wrestling, I remember all the stories with him and AJ and how he used to make fun of AJ for being a cheerleader. But AJ was just, so great, so crisp in the ring. I mean, it was one of my highlights that early in my career.
Yeah, I mean, he was. I always felt for he was a name when you worked him and being, and I think that was part of my deal. I was, and I know this is not about me, but I was more AJ. I wasn't AJ Styles fan because of that. He didn't know how to tell a story. I was more into storytelling at the time. And you mentioned him, so the next guy on the list is Jerry Lynn.
Yeah, he's not the one who actually brought me into the business or got me, taught me how to bump, something like that. Jerry's the one who actually polished me up and taught me how to tell a story. And I just talked to Jerry this week. I mean, Jerry is one of the smartest people in the wrestling business I've ever been around. From day one, I remember we wrestled each other in Illinois. I brought him in and looked right at me, and we introduced ourselves, and guys wanted him to watch the first match there. First match on that card had light bulbs, thumbtacks, barbed wire, flaming tables, all that stuff. I remember Jerry putting his arm around me, looked right at me and said, "Listen, we're going to go out there and wrestle." And, and we hit it off from day one. And even to this day, his family's my family's his family. We're so close. I mean, I love him to death. He hopefully, fingers crossed, will be in at the NXT at the Performance facility here in the next few months, working there full time because he taught me so much in the wrestling business, and he can teach those guys in NXT, and everyone there can learn so much and become a better worker just by being around Jerry Lynn. I mean, he is, he's one of those guys that he didn't make up the new effing show. He was given that nickname, and he deserves every single bit of it because, one of the smartest and one of the greatest storytellers ever in the wrestling business.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I've never been around Lynn but one time, and we didn't even talk. So he was on the show and I was too, but I never even got a chance to talk with him. All right, here's a big name right here, a Big Daddy Cool Diesel. You actually wrestled Kevin Nash, so give us a story about Kevin Nash real quick.
Yes, Kevin Nash, and Kevin gets so I don't know why people always give him. I guess because of all the WCW deal, it's kind of once the internet age got going, people blamed, him and Hogan for WCW and everything, and it's so not true. Kevin Nash, I remember wrestling him in Tuckerman, Arkansas. I remember before the match, he called me over, and he asked what we were doing. It was me and dear little Dave against him and a local guy, Excalibur. And I remember he asked us, "Hey, what do you want to do?" And I told him, I was like, we'll take the heat out on the hometown guy. You come in, hot tag, boot, power bomb, we'll go home. And I literally remember him telling me, if he's the hometown guy, why don't you take the heat out on me? And actually he changed the finish. Yes, he changed the finish to where we ended up having the Family of Pain come out and hit him in the back of the head with a chain and rolled me on top and put me over. It's one of the, biggest honors I've ever had in the wrestling business. And so nice. So nice. We didn't even ask him, and my wife and daughter took a picture, and he asked us if we'd take a picture with him. We didn't even ask him, and I remember me and Elix Skipper tearing the house down, the very next night, and him calling us over there, giving us both a beer, and said, "Here, have a beer with me," and I remember him telling the promoter, he's like, "There's no way in hell we're going to be able to follow that."
Well, good deal. Good to hear, good things about Kevin Nash, and I know you've had good experiences with most everybody. But let's talk about Petey Williams.
Yeah, Petey Williams, at the time he was the X Division champion. And I remember, I don't remember I think it was Kenny Valiant brought him in on a Saturday morning show, and then we brought him in at Tuckerman on Saturday night, so I got to wrestle him twice in one day. And I remember Petey, so nice, and I even talked to him even today. I mean, Petey is such a nice guy, so unbelievably talented. I mean, the guy, if he was 6'3", he would have been a multi-time WWE champion. He really would have, because the guy is just so good in the ring. Me and him went out and had pretty close to the same match both times, and tore the roof off every single time, that we wrestled each other. Such a nice guy, so perfect in the ring. He's one of those guys that there's no wasted motion, and he's so, he really is humble. He didn't feel like he was better than anyone there. And I remember the second match, he actually kind of tweaked his tailbone a little bit, and me and Hollywood Jimmy worked for about 3 or 4 minutes on the outside where he rolled me back in. And after it was over, I remember Petey go over and he said, most guys would have froze up, but when I tweaked myself, he said, you actually just told me, here, you sell, or you just work it out, and I'll take care of it on the outside and kill a little bit of time. But I remember just an amazing experience getting to wrestle him twice in one day.
Awesome. And here's a guy for sure I didn't know you worked against, and that's Colt Cabana.
Yeah, Colt Cabana, I actually wrestled him. It was the CCW Super Show during the Comic-Con weekend in Cape Girardeau. I'm wrestling for CCW, Cape Championship Wrestling currently. And I got to work Colt, and it was a fatal four-way for the heavyweight title. And I remember, Colt got a lot of bad, I guess, or not reviews, I guess you could say, but some stuff he'd said on the podcast, it didn't sit right with a lot of people, and Coach, great in the ring. When we got in the ring, we had a great match. All four of us had a great match, and I was just sitting back, just listening on some of the ways that he kind of tweaked what we were doing and just the storytelling. And he's one of those guys that you just kind of you step back and you want to see. He's done so much in the wrestling business. He's made a living as an independent wrestler, which is something that's so hard to do. And the way that he's done it, being able to do comedy spots, because I was always taught when I first came up was funny doesn't equal money. But, Colt Cabana has changed that. He really has. He's taken and made funny make money. He really has. And I just give him all the props in the world for how he's been able to take and the comedy act as well as wrestling ability and make a living for himself.
Right. Here we got, and you mentioned him earlier, Elix Skipper.
Elix Skipper, Elix he's so nice. Elix is another one of those that I became really good friends with afterwards. I haven't talked to him in a while. I talked to David Young, who's a friend of mine also, about Elix. I remember they brought Elix in. It was in Tupelo, Mississippi. We were at the Bancorp South Center, and we had 2,500 people paid to get in. Of course, when you look at it on TV, it looks empty because it's 2,500 in an arena that seats 20-something thousand.
Yeah.
But I remember we went out there and had an unbelievable match, and Elix is such a perfectionist. We went over the match. I swear we had to go over the match 100 times before the match actually happened, doing TV. And he's like, all right, as soon as we got done, we're going through over the spots. All right, I forgot. Tell me it again. All right, I forgot. Tell me it again. He's one of those guys that actually taught me how to be able to call every spot in the back, but then when you go out there, be able to change spots depending on the reaction from the crowd. And, I love Elix to death. He's another one of those that should have been – he should have made so much more of himself. He was WCW and, he also at TNA, but, WWE, that's one of those ones that WWE lost the chance. They dropped the ball on being able to bring Skipper in. Just so great to work with, and one of the closest friends at that time for a very long time, and it just, I love him to death.
Good deal. Now we're going to combine a couple guys together here, and when I tell their names, it's pretty obvious when we're going to do that. We're looking at Scott and Rick Steiner. You worked both of those guys.
Yeah, I remember when they brought Scott and Rick in. It was Rocktoberfest in Batesville, Arkansas, And I remember they were bringing them in, and they told me that they were going to, they're having me and Casino Kid wrestle against the Steiner brothers. And then literally I got goosebumps on my arms. I mean, because I watched the Steiners for so many years. They were my favorite tag team growing up. It was the Steiners and the Rock and Roll Express. And getting to wrestle them was just such an honor. And I always thought, I was like, okay, you got the Steiner brothers coming in. These guys have made so much money in the business. And they've done so much, like, over the years. I didn't know really how to react, or what to even expect. Especially, when you're watching it and you see Scott Steiner and you see him throw those chops. And, man, every time he throws those chops, you just kind of cringe and you're like, oh, man, it's going to be rough. And Rick Steiner is such a, Rick Steiner is so, I don't know, I guess underrated as far as in-ring ability. And I got to wrestle him, and I remember it was in Batesville, and it was not long after I'd wrestled Petey Williams, because Petey was doing the little Papa Pump gimmick. I remember Scott called me in there, and he's like, hey, come here. So I go over there, and he's like, you're the guy that Petey likes, right? So I was like, oh, I'd hope so, I guess so. I remember he's like, all right. He's like, all right, you stick with me. I was like, okay. He's like, he said, let me just warn you. He said, the chops are a little stiff. I was like, okay, yeah, that's fine. Let's just make sure to get y'all get y'all stuff in. And it was so cool just in the locker room and him saying, all right, I'm going to give you the Frankensteiner. As soon as he said that, man, I was so mesmerized. But going out there, we went out there in the ring. I remember, for one, Scott Steiner's chops are not as bad as they seem.
Right.
They were awesome. Yeah. But, in the ring with them, it was just so awe. I was in such awe just being in the ring with those two guys. But I do remember Rick. I started backing up to Rick. Scott was backing me up, and I told Rick, I kind of leaned over because I'd seen his spot 100 times, with him and other people, where he backed them when they back into the rope. But Rick Steiner bit a plug out of my rear end. I jumped, scooted across the ring with my butt like a dog, and Rick Steiner's over there laughing in the corner. And after it's over with, he's like, he used to do that. He said he did that to Arn Anderson so many times that just bit a plug out of the rear end. He said it's just kind of his rib. And I was thinking to myself, like, I was just a part of the same rib that he done to Arn Anderson all the time. How cool is this?
Yeah, I mean, with you doing, being able to wrestle all these guys, there's also that mark moment that you get, and it's, hey, there's nothing wrong with it. You watch these guys on TV so much, and the next guy I'm going to mention, I'm going to tell you, I was always a mark for him, and actually I can call him a friend now. Knows me by my first name, talk to him. I don't talk to him as much now as I used to, but we call him the nicest guy in the business, and Bobby Eaton.
Yeah, Bobby Eaton, I'm going to give you one story of Bobby in the ring, and the rest of it is all going to be outside of it, because if you know Bobby, you'd know why. But I remember wrestling Bobby. I've wrestled him several times. But I remember him and Golden Boy Greg Anthony wrestling against me and somebody else. I don't remember who it was. So I remember at the very beginning of it, they're sitting there, and it was during the Shine. We were the baby faces, and I remember Bobby being in the ring, and the guy I was tagging with picks Bobby up, or tries to pick Bobby up by the wrong side to body slam him. Then he tries to pick up Bobby from the wrong side to suplex him. I remember Bobby Eaton hooking the guy, bringing him in the corner, and saying, "Tag Austin in before I kill you." I got in the ring, and he's like, "Thank you so much." He's like, "Get me away from that guy." But Bobby, I'll tell you one story about Bobby that will always ring true to me. Bobby is the nicest person I've ever met in this business. My grandmother passed away several years ago, and I remember standing up by the casket on the night before the funeral, and it was at the wake. Now, I looked back at the very back of the room because all of a sudden there was a hush and people were staring at the back of the room. And I looked back there, and there's Bobby Eaton standing there at the very back of the room, coming to pay his respects to my grandmother and come to check on me, make sure I was okay. I never called Bobby. It wasn't in the paper or anything like that. Bobby heard through the grapevine that my grandmother had passed away, and I remember him asking Brian Thompson to take him to Newport, to where I was at, so he could check on me.
There you go, guys. We continue to be the nicest guy in the business there. All right, here's one of my arch nemesis. Actually, Bill always shakes my hand and says, "See you next time, kid." Even to the day. So it's Bill Dundee.
Oh, I love Bill Dundee. Bill Dundee has taught me so much also. Bill Dundee is the smartest guy in the wrestling business ever. He really is. I mean, he booked so many territories for years. But I remember one time it was me and Justin Smart were wrestling each other for Power Pro. And we came back to the locker room, and Bill calls us over there, and he says, "Who the hell shot on who? Who's pissed off? What happened?" And we both look at Bill, and we're like, "Bill, we weren't shooting. We never touched each other." Gave us both big old hug, and he says, "God damn it, boys, don't ever do that shit with me." I remember that, but I also remember, Bill is always wants to wrestle me when he came to Tuckerman, because we have great matches every single time. But I remember we were doing a 2-week Bill, me and Bill fight the next week, so I was putting him over. And I remember the week he come back and he says, "Hey, Austin, my back's killing me. Let's not do any bumps." And I said, "Okay, Bill." I said, "Do not bump out there. I'll take care of all of it." So I sold for him. He didn't take a bump the entire match. We had a great match. I thought he goes back to the back. I was supposed to cut the promo by the announcer's table. I cut the promo about Bill Dundee, and I remember getting hit across the shoulder. Somebody walked past me. It's Bill Dundee, and all of a sudden Bill turns around, grabs the microphone. He says, "Listen up, you little punk kid." He lowers the mic, and he says, "Punch me." Raises the mic back up. I punch him. Bill Dundee takes a bump right on the concrete.
Oh.
And I got back to the back, and I said, "Bill, I kept you from taking a bump." He said, "Well, God damn it, kid." He said, "You worked your ass off for me. I was going to have to put you over."
Oh, I've got crazy, probably 100 Bill Dundee stories. So, but here we go.
Yeah, I do
Jerry
too.
the King. Yeah. We could spend a whole hour talking about Bill Dundee, but good and bad. Here we go with Jerry the King Lawler.
Jerry Lawler, I've wrestled him several times, and Jerry is, he really, you don't have to call anything. Jerry is Memphis wrestling. When they say he's got the best working punches in the business, bar none ever. And Jerry is, a lot of people don't like Jerry, but more people do like Jerry because, he is he's such a ring general. I remember several different times. First of all, I remember at a Night of the Legends show when Jerry gave me a pile driver and still put me over the same match, like went over on him. And he didn't have to do that, and he did. And I was just a young kid at the time, and it was, that was such an honor for me. But I remember several different matches. I remember one time we had a show at Tuckerman. It was me and Jerry, and earlier in the night they had Ultimate X, so they had the chains across the top of the arena for the Ultimate X still up there.
Right.
And I remember, early in the match, I take and I give Jerry, Bill him out of the corner. He takes a bump, and one of the light bulbs falls and lands on the chain and just stays there like it's about to fall in the ring. And we worked the rest of the match about 30 minutes, probably about 15, 20 minutes. I worked him with the Coke can. I worked him with all kinds of different gimmicks. Neither one of us ever took a bump the rest of the time, other than the pile drive at the very end, because we just protecting each other from that very light bulb, and it never fell. That's one thing I always remember with Jerry Lawler.
All right, so we got two more guys. Number one, and I've been around Buff a couple of times, and nothing but good experience with Buff. But Buff Bagwell.
Buff Bagwell, and that's another one I've talked to since. We follow each other on Twitter. We talk to each other on Twitter quite a bit. Buff, it's my story that I remember most of Buff. I wrestled Buff probably 5 or 6 times. First time I wrestled him, and it was in Batesville, Arkansas, Rocktoberfest. Kind of like it was the family. It was the same year I wrestled the Steiner, so it was like Family Fun Fest or something like that. I remember wrestling Buff. We get ready to go home. He gets up on the second rope to hit the blockbuster. Second rope snaps right as he jumps. I dive, catch Buff from landing on his head. I catch him, and we ended up going into it and hitting something else for the finish. I don't even remember what it was. But I remember going back, and afterwards we had like a little press conference kind of thing at Josie's Steakhouse. Fans were coming up to him, and I remember being out there in that area, fans coming up to him and asking for his autograph, and every single person who did, he sent to me me, and he said, you need to go talk to that guy right there. That guy right there is a star. And sent all those people over there to talk to me and to get my autograph. And he, put me over so huge. And, and I've talked to him several times since. And one of the other stories that I remember with Buff, there one night we had a wrestling show outside, and the dew on the mat was so slippery. We slipped and slid all over the place. Me and him were just dying laughing the entire match. But, always positive stories with Buff. Unbelievable guy.
All right, our last guy on the list, and I saved him because he's been one of the guys that I've really liked watching and probably considered easily one of the top 5 in the business right now currently. And then the match you had with him for CCW, I think I sent you a text after the match. I either gave it 4.5 or 4.25, and I'm real stingy about giving those stars. Excellent match with Ricochet, and that was last year, right?
Yes, it was. That was actually August of last year.
August of last year. So tell us about working Ricochet.
Ricochet was one of those. I got called to ask to work Ricochet it was when I was first brought into Cape Championship Wrestling, and I remember people coming up to me and was like, "Hey, you think you can keep up with that guy? Are you sure you can do it?" And I remember Jason telling me, he's like, "Man, well, I'm booking you against him because you're the guy. You're the guy to keep up with this guy." So I remember, and when Ricochet shows up, Ricochet lives about an hour away from Cape, so he had his family was there, his son was there, and I knew it was going to be a big deal for him. So I remember him going back there, and the first time his jaw dropped when he asked me, he's like, "Hey, what are we going to do tonight?" And I said, "Everything that you do." And his jaw dropped, and he's like, "Are you sure you can do that?" And I told him, I was like, "Listen, I've got this. Don't worry about it. I've been doing this a long time. I got this." I remember going over all of his spots, and Ricochet is the most athletic person in the wrestling business today, and he may be between him and maybe Okada, probably the best wrestler in pound for pound in the world. He really is, and we did all that. We had an unbelievable match. He hugged me. I remember he hugging me afterwards, and his son came up and hugged me just because, I was able to allow him to perform in front of his family, and it just meant so much to him, and that meant so much to me, telling me that he was able to perform to the best of his abilities and being able to do it in front of his family he doesn't get to do it very often for.
Awesome. Hey, I usually just cut everybody off right here and we go to the end, but we didn't do anything at the beginning, and I always forget. First, I want you to, before we cut you off and say goodbye, I want you to put your Twitter over, any other social media that you have. I want everyone to know that I will be posting that CCW match with Ricochet. I'll post it on stspod.club so you guys can take a look at it. I want you to put over your Twitter and tell us the great news, and I've seen this on Twitter. I'm all excited for you guys about CCW coming to you tell them. You tell them your Twitter, and then you tell them the big news.
Okay, you can follow me on Twitter at Austin Lane, the number 1, as in Austin on AUSTINLANE, the number 1 on Twitter. On Instagram, it's The Real Austin Lane. I tweet out and post stuff, nerdy stuff, because I'm a huge nerd in wrestling stuff. And currently, if you want to see me wrestle, take and go to Cape Girardeau this coming month on I believe it's the 24th, so Saturday, 24th to 25th of June, for CCW Inferno in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. Better get your tickets fast at capewrestling.com because I believe the first sale row's already gone. I think maybe they only have general admission left. Go online. You should be able to get your tickets. And the great news is that CCW Chaos, the television show, has been picked up and will debut this Wednesday night at 6 p.m. on the Fight Network, or on the Fight TV. I'm sorry, on Fight TV. You can get the app. Go to my Twitter. It's a little bit. You should see a link that you can sign up to get the app. Just to create your account. It's completely free, but you can watch CCW Wrestling. You can watch Austin Lane as well as Nikki and a lot of great performers. This first show this Wednesday night, you can see, will be the Fatal 4-Way. Myself, Hollis Giroux, Brandon Barbwire, and Colt Cabana for the CCW title will be this Wednesday night at 6 p.m. If you miss the show, it's no problem because it goes directly on demand after that. So you can get on the Fight TV app, search for Cape Championship Wrestling or CCW, and you'll be able to watch the show on demand after every Wednesday. But we're going to be on there every single Wednesday live the first time at 6 p.m., and then it'll be on demand after that.
Hey, thank you. Thank you, Austin, for joining us, and I want to thank everyone for listening today. As I always say, thank you for listening. He was talking about the fight out there, and I just want to put it over real quick. It's www.fight.tv. If you go there, and like you said, it's free. You can download the app, watch stuff on your phone and tablet. No, they're not paying me anything. I'm just going to put this over. You can now, at one point, you couldn't actually watch it on your desktop. If you have any kind of streaming device like Roku, Xbox, Chromecast, Apple TV, you can stream it right to your big screen, and it also works with all the smart TVs. So watch CCW Wrestling. There's all kinds of wrestling stuff. If you right now say, I'm a wrestling fan, but I don't like the current product, and you can't go on Fight TV and find something to watch, you're not a wrestling fan, all right? So, guys, as I always, last 3 or 4 weeks, I've been saying same bat time and same bat channel. And as you guys know, that Adam West passed away. He was a huge part of my childhood. I never got the opportunity to meet him. So rest in peace, Batman. Batman 1966 will always be part of my childhood, and was one of the reasons I become such a huge Batman fan. So, guys, join us for the best little podcast, the best little wrestling podcast in the business. Same bat time and same bat channel.
Panera now delivers, so you can order good, clean food right to your office, or door, or porch, or backyard, or front yard, or apartment, or dorm, or castle, or shop, or worksite, or wherever. For lunch, dinner, and everywhere in between. Click the banner to order or visit PaneraBread.com. Participating locations only. St. Louis Bread Company. Food as it should be.
Staples knows that when the leave-behinds for your sales call get left behind at your office, it's time. When you need to print 30 pages and you're 300 miles from the office, it's time. And when the intern packed the Harrington file, not the Farrington file.
Oh, my bad.
It's definitely time. And it's times like these when you can count on Staples. Access your files from email, the cloud, or USB, and then print, copy, fax, or scan them, and get back to business fast. Visit your nearby Staples. It's pro time.